Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
We are Sacred Council. My name is Alexa.
My name is Luke.
And we're so honored to have you here today as we go through a video course that we generally offer folks at the end of retreat. But we're feeling really inspired to extend our circles of support to our online community, to folks working at home with loved ones, or perhaps that had attended another retreat and would like to have a little bit more of a support and integration.
Yeah, so this guide, these 6 pathways, will be mostly theoretical, and they are intended to accompany our 6 pathways guided practice, which is a self-paced online course that will guide you through the actual physical practices and the methods that we're going to dive into today. But before we begin, let's explain a little bit about what psychedelic integration actually is and how we're going to approach it. So what is psychedelic integration? That is a very good question. Even the term alone we can get a little bit lost in, so let's really break it down and pull it apart. Integration is, you could say, the difference between just having an experience with plant medicine and what could be your life's turning point. It is not an event. Integration is not just something that happens or like a checklist of activities, but rather it's a dynamic journey. It's something that grows with you and changes with you, and it's, like any other journey, it's filled with peaks and valleys and can involve moments of sometimes getting lost and rediscovering the path, of allowing time for rest and coming back to it, allowing time for reflection and allowing time to honor actually how much you've changed. And so again, integration is dynamic. It's a lifestyle practice centered on returning to yourself, returning to wholeness, essentially rediscovering who you truly are at a core level. And so our approach to integration is not only relevant for those who've had psychedelic experiences, but also for really anybody who's ready to shift back to living in their truth, living in presence, living in health, living in clarity, living in purpose, in service. And oftentimes, peak experiences like the ones we have with plant medicines, they bring us a lot of new insights and a lot of information, a lot of teachings, and they give us a fresh opportunity to make lasting changes. So you could say that integration in that way can begin at any stage of life. It doesn't have to be right after a ceremony or retreat. It could begin at any time. And so it focuses on healing the areas where we've become fragmented in our lives and bringing everything back together, back to wholeness in a sustainable and empowering way. Because our lives often have become fragmented, all of us, and that can happen through trauma. It can happen through repressing our truth for too long or repressing our emotions for too long. It can happen through our family life or our social conditioning or just being under stress or being in poor health. All of these things can kind of pull us apart, and all of it, the good news is, can be reintegrated and recovered back to wholeness.
You could say that our life is the course of noticing how we've been separated from wholeness, from oneness, from what people call non-duality. And then we get the joy of spending the rest of our lives bringing everything together to a whole. A lot of what holistic therapies promote is this idea of healing, which actually comes from the etymology of making whole, wholing. And so when we come to these awarenesses through plant medicine or a deeper journey with meditation, we can start to see the place where we became fragmented. And seeing the truth of these fragmentations can put us on the spectrum of super inspired, feeling validated, feeling engaged, and finally seeing the truth, finally making the connection. Or it can completely put us on the other side of the spectrum of feeling really overwhelmed and feeling really challenged and feeling like the foundation of our reality has fallen away. So depending wherever you are on the spectrum, every single one of these pathways can support you in another way. We advise you, as you hear these 6 pathways, please allow yourself to only start with 1 or 2 that feels particularly inspiring to you. Just like the rungs of a wheel, each one hits the ground at a different moment. So honoring the process that continues to unfold. This is not about becoming someone else. This is about becoming more of who you are. More of who you are before a series of traits, cultural advices, family belief systems were passed down to you From the moment you could remember memories in the language area of the brain that's around 3 years old up until now, that programming is called your personality. And so through a series of beautiful things or challenging things, we come to know ourselves to be like Alexa, who I thought was Alexa, which is really just a series of coincidences or preferences from my family members. And so when we have a pause in our personality, we can start to sort through the things where we get to consciously choose as adults what traits we want to honor, what traits we want to continue as tradition. The difference between trauma and wisdom is choice. The difference between trauma and wisdom is choice. It's the ability to let go of the things that no longer help us, or to take in the things that we choose to alchemize and find wholeness through. Another area where we'll touch on for psychedelic integration is this concept of neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. In the journey, there's a stimulation of serotonin receptors in the brain that actually promote the ends of the neurons to grow even longer. So you're quite literally growing your brain. With the brain growing, which we call neurogenesis, which actually starts to peak at 24 and then immediately decline. You'll see babies, they learn very, very quickly. That is high neurogenesis. And so when we pass 24, the brain stops developing fully and the neurogenesis starts to fall down. A little boost of serotonin in the plant medicine creates the ability of the brain to grow in new ways. When the brain gets to grow, we're curating these pathways to create new connections so that neurons that wire together and fire together can create new traits from mental states. The mental state that you received at being with a beautiful group of people, whether it was a ceremony or a meditation place and space, that's the state. And through repetition and walking these pathways, we're transitioning these states from being temporary to traits of your new personality that you get to choose with love, compassion, and true understanding of who you are. So these 6 pathways support these varying aspects of your experience. They're all different kinds of support. Sometimes you'll need grounding, stillness, slowness. Other times you'll need reflection. Sometimes a path calls for solitude, and then other times connection. So the invitation is to actually listen to what your system needs. Just as Luke mentioned, it's not really a checklist. It's more about a companion that you walk with on this path.
Yes, and so you can think of these pathways like spokes of a wheel. They're all equally essential, and you'll find that many of these pathways weave into one another. And so it's not about recreating the same feelings you experienced during your ceremony or retreat. It's about honoring your inner landscape as a living reality that can walk beside consensus reality and not be erased by it. Okay, so before we even get into the pathways, we're going to talk about just transitioning, just the moments right after your ceremony or retreat, transitioning back into the world.
Many times we come to retreat because we've overextended our personal capacity. So it can be really important to ask yourself the question, do I currently have the inner resources to navigate this space without overwhelming myself? We want to find that gentle edge to growing resilience and not overwhelming the body. So if the answer is no, recognize that maybe later on you will be able to, but right now it's super important that stress might actually stem from you pushing yourself beyond your nervous system's capacity. And this is all coming from the neurobiology of growth and neurogenesis. So when the capacity is low, allow yourself to recognize that mild challenges might feel toxic, which we're about to talk about, if you're feeling under-resourced. So consider that you can say no to things that don't feel that good right now. That will change. But first, you have to honor where you're at. So 2 other aspects I would love to talk about and share with you are 2 questions. How do I practice relational consciousness and honor where others are at? And then, is this really toxic? This is a very interesting phrase we've been hearing lately, and I would love to break it down from a lens that we hold that is neither here nor there, but allows you to have an inquiry around this concept. So relational consciousness. Can I meet this person, this family member, this lover, this friend, this coworker at the current level of consciousness where they are without needing to change them? And that directly relates to your capacity. If your capacity is big, there will be a little bit of flexibility. If it's feeling prickly and really hard, you may recognize that right now you cannot extend yourself to meet this person where they are at. And therefore, a different level of action is needed, which might actually be allowing yourself space. The next part of relational consciousness is allowing yourself the time to integrate without needing to evangelize or preach your experience. Just let others feel the change in your voice, in your eyes, in your body posture, in your embrace. And those that feel resonant will definitely hear the call. The next step is allowing yourself to step outside your personal righteousness, your ideology, to engage with the reality as it is. It can be amazing to be at retreat, and we hold this at like the highest potential of what it is to relate to one another. And that's the ideal. And the moment we try to change reality for an ideal, we call that striving. And so we can hold the ideal as a potential while still choosing to arrive to the present moment with flexibility and compassion. So it's balancing those two things. It's like reality and ideal. And how do we let those two coexist? And you'll find the more you're able to hold those two, the more harmonious interactions will be with loved ones or even coworkers. And then finally, everyone's on their own journey. And so it's really, really important to begin your own self-development, your own journey with yourself. And if they feel that little shift in you and they recognize that, that means that the seed of potential also lies in them. We can't actually identify anything that we don't already have. So if they feel the difference in your speech, the difference in your body language, and they identify that, that might be the invitation. And then finally, if you catch yourself asking if this is a toxic relationship, a toxic job, another question you can ask yourself that we believe actually supports a little bit more self-awareness is, am I responding to a true threat? Or is this just a discomfort and a memory of an old true threat? In internal family systems, we call this unblending with a past trauma projection. This difficult place or difficult person may actually be reminding you of a time when it truly was a threat. And the body is keeping the score. The body is reminding you of this past moment. So discernment is so key. So if you can notice that your reaction to the person literally in front of you right now is a little bit out of proportionality to the actual experience, this can be a great invitation from the discomfort to do some inner work. We recommend somatic experiencing, releasing the charge of the reaction, parts work, engaging with a part that might be younger that is from that time when you actually did have a traumatic relationship or a traumatic experience, or hakomi. And so somatic work, insight work, working with a therapist will provide you the freedom to actually meet this person where they are right now, as opposed to meeting them from a younger part of you that did receive harm. So now we're ready to start walking the path. The 6 pathways of psychedelic integration are: number 1, the art of stillness, the medicine of listening, receptivity, rest, presence, and unstructured being. Number 2 is a daily practice, a consistent and gentle ritual that creates a rhythm. It creates containment and slow organic change. Number 3, wellness and self-care. Nourishing the nervous system, tending the body, building inner safety with daily choices. Number 4, connection to nature. Co-regulating with the earth's natural rhythms, relearning to belong through land, elements, and wild beauty. Number 5, felt sense exploration. Engaging the senses through creativity, intentionality, and creating touch points back to the sacred. Number 6, community. Sharing, what we call mirroring, finding both support and accountability by walking with others also on the path.
Okay, pathway number 1 we call stillness, and there's 2 aspects to this. One is not doing, and the other is not knowing. And so with not doing, this is about making time to just simply be still. And this really can't be emphasized enough. When we become still, this is when we can actually listen. And when we can listen, we can actually learn something. And when we listen, we can listen to the heart. We can listen to our intuition. We can listen to nature. So stillness is about making the shift from a human doing, a human working, a human speaking, a human walking, talking, to a human being, and just simply being. And this is very much a practice and can be achieved through different forms of meditation, but it often starts with the simple awareness that all of our subconscious tendencies fill our time with often meaningless distractions. So it's about just taking time to be still and just not doing anything.
The second aspect of stillness is encouraging and delighting in not knowing. And I want to quote Anne Weiser Cornell, who was a teacher of focusing, which is an early somatic practice. And Anne Cornell says, "Our modern culture puts a great premium on clarity. We're taught if we can't think or say something clearly, then it's not important. It may not seem likely that there would be wisdom hiding in this fuzzy, vague, hard to describe something that you feel in your body, but there is. That's exactly where wisdom is. It's not in what is already clear, but what is making itself known." And so when we allow ourselves to delight in the not knowing, we're actually delighting in inviting in a wisdom that is greater than what we had known previously, which we dare call growth.
Mm-hmm.
And so that being said, there's many kinds of meditation practices, but some are self-inquiry practices. And this one comes from a tradition that is delights in the not knowing. And it's pairing the phrase through a variety of techniques, the phrase of, "Who am I?" And asking that with one of our teachers, Sahajananda says, with wonderment. Instead of rushing to say, "Who am I? Who am I?" It's saying, "Who am I?" And then allowing the answer to be known through what is arising right now. So we don't ask the questions to find the answers. We ask the questions to keep living this pathway of not knowing, and eventually the answer will be our life.
Yeah. One more thing I'd like to say about stillness too is that it gives us an opportunity to receive information, receive insights and wisdom instead of, like Alexa said, looking for answers. It keeps us out of this mode of striving and allows the wisdom to come to us. Okay, pathway number 2 is about developing a daily practice. So a daily practice is about carving a groove through the center of your life with consistent, gentle rituals that create rhythm and stability and self-trust and containment, self-respect, and slow change, slow organic change. And so this can be very different from a spiritual practice, although a spiritual practice can certainly be part of your daily practice. But a daily practice can be very simple, and we recommend doing your daily practice at the same time every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. And this is a way of showing up for yourself before getting pulled into the day and all the things that you need to do and all the responsibilities and things like this. And one daily practice that we highly recommend, which is very easy, you could even do it just laying in bed. The first thing as you wake up is gratitude and positive affirmation. So this is a way of not only connecting to and opening your heart, but programming your subconscious mind with supportive beliefs. And so again, this is especially useful right before you go to bed. Directly upon waking, this is when the subconscious mind is most receptive to new information, to new commands, you could say. And so see if you can start each day by expressing gratitude from the heart for what you have. And it can be very simple. It can be just giving thanks for another day of life. It can be for your bed, for your home, for your loved ones, for your body, for your breath, and really expressing it and really feeling it and saying thank you. Saying thank you for all that you have. Because you have a lot. We all have a lot, but rarely do we actually acknowledge it.
Yeah, and actually, our minds and our brains are wired to not necessarily realize the benefits and the beauties of our life. Rick Hansen, who has studied the effects of meditation for the last 4 decades at Stanford, calls this the negativity bias. The brain and the default mode network exists to scan the environment for danger and to remember all the times that things went bad. So by using the neurogenerativity of the plant medicine experience and the neuroplasticity that is still active in you, you're creating new wired pathways to promoting a more positive outlook in life. This is really great for folks that have chronic pain. Instead of focusing on the physical pain, noticing where in the body feels neutral or actually feels pleasant. And so what we're using is neuroscience-based techniques to shifting our felt sense and our experience. Rick Hansen has mentioned the neurons that fire together, wire together, and neural states turn into natural traits. So this practice of gratitude helps shift the state of gratitude just at retreat or at a beautiful peak experience to the gratitude that is a resonant ripple in our daily lives. Another aspect of a daily practice is simply caring for your space. As within, so without. The state of your bed is the state of your head. Meaning if your home is messy and cluttered, this may reflect your internal process of feeling messy and cluttered. It shouldn't feel like a chore, but it can be an act of self-care, self-compassion. It can be really simple. And so it seems pretty mundane, but it can become magical. Luke has a pretty funny story about him seeking spiritual awakening and an immediate response from one of his teachers.
Yeah, in my early 20s, I trekked to Southeast Asia, to Vietnam, to study with this Buddhist monk who I was expecting would give me all of this esoteric wisdom, and he did eventually, but on the first day, he said, okay, your homework is you're going to make your bed every day. And I had very rarely made my bed in my life. It was not something that I thought was important, but I took his advice and I started to do that, and lo and behold, it started to really make a difference. It felt like a simple act of self-care. It felt like a simple act of resetting, and something psychologically about it was like symbolizing the beginning of a new day, and with a fresh slate, with a clean slate. And so just caring for your physical space is, it shouldn't feel like a chore, but again, like an act of self-respect, an act of self-love, not only for yourself, but for those who you live with, and it creates harmony in the home and in your mind and in your body as well.
A third aspect of a daily practice is just as simple as quiet reflection. This quiet reflection could be sitting in front of a window, gazing at the world outside. It could be journaling. It could be sitting with a cup of tea and just feeling the warmth on your hands. It's a sense of receptivity. And the more we practice receptivity in our daily life, the more we show ourselves that I trust what's happening here.
Okay, pathway number 3 is about wellness and self-care, about physical self-care, because it is very difficult to grow spiritually, mentally, emotionally, in a body that's feeling sluggish or inflamed, achy, or if you're suffering from bad digestion or poor sleep. So getting into optimal physical health is different for everybody. We have bio-individuality. All of our bodies are different, so it's important to honor your body and your individuality by learning what works for you. For optimal results, it's good to work with someone who knows about nutrition, like a health coach, or someone who can run some functional medicine lab tests with you and see if you have any deficiencies or toxicities or gut dysbiosis or candida or parasites or heavy metals or any of these things, because no amount of dietary changes can really drastically affect those things. And so it's important to test if you do feel like your body is really out of balance. But in the meantime, a really good holistic approach that we work with for pretty much everybody is to give attention to each of the physical elements in your body. Your body is made of the elements, just like the earth. So this approach is about creating a balanced ecosystem within. And so the first element we speak to is the earth. And so a good practice for balancing your earth element is just eating whole foods, real foods, organic, local, vital foods that ideally grow somewhere near to you, grow in the soil that you walk on, because that's really important for a healthy ecosystem. The second element is your water element. So this speaks to getting proper hydration with clean water. So not drinking tap water, drinking water that has minerals in it if you need to add minerals. That's always a good practice. Filtered water usually doesn't have minerals in it, and when we drink water that does not have minerals, it actually leaches minerals out of the body, can actually dehydrate us, which is interesting. The third element is air, and this is bringing awareness to your breath. So things like breathwork practices, but even just having awareness to how you're breathing. Starting the day with a few nice deep breaths is a really nice practice, and just bringing awareness to how things in your environment are affecting how you breathe. And the fire element speaks to movement, to moving the body every day, getting some form of exercise, even if it's just going for a walk. It's about raising the core temperature. And fire also speaks to the sun. We live under a giant ball of fire, so getting natural sunlight on the skin. Another really good thing to do is incorporate some form of therapeutic stress. Just that term, therapeutic stress, might be a little confusing to some, but actually a little bit of stress, when we choose it, when we go into stress intentionally, is actually very good for us. So things like, again, exercise, high intensity interval training can be really effective and powerful. Things like cold water therapy for some people. I wouldn't recommend everybody go into a cold plunge every day. It's not for everybody, but maybe just turning your shower cold at the end of a shower for a minute just to kind of activate the adrenals and activate the breath. Fasting is incredibly healthy if done properly. And again, breath work. These are all really good ways of incorporating therapeutic stress into your day. So another really easy way that you can think about balancing your health are from these two aspects, one being replacing deficiencies and removing toxicities. So if you do both of these things, you bring the body back into balance. So when it comes to deficiencies, I'm speaking specifically to nutrient deficiencies, which is really common. A lot of people are deficient in a lot of different nutrients. So finding a good quality supplement that's third-party tested, and again, the supplements that you need are going to be different for everybody. This is why, again, it's important to test. But pretty much everybody will benefit from taking a high-quality multivitamin, vitamin D3 with K, and a high-quality omega, that's omega-3-6 balanced, and magnesium. These are all really good for pretty much everybody. And the other aspect is removing toxicities. And so there's a couple different ways to think about this, one being toxicities of the mind, which we find, of course, through things like social media and news and pornography, and just it's easy to find toxicities of the mind. I think you know what they are. And so limiting your exposure to these things. And other toxicities referring to the body are things like, again, chemicals in the food, chemicals in your cosmetics, staying away from processed food. Anything that comes in a box or a bag has been processed and is usually inflammatory for the body. So removing toxicities and replacing deficiencies.
So number 4 of the pathways, one of my favorites, connecting with nature. This is one of the most natural pathways that we walk. We have been doing this ever since human beings have been on the earth. And so co-regulating with the earth's natural rhythms and remembering that you're one with nature. It's all pretty basic, but it's something our ancestors have been benefiting from since the beginning of time. Since modern times, we've lost a little bit of this connection, and this connection can influence our body, which Luke will talk a little bit about. It can influence our mind, and also what some people call our spirit. This is not about doing anything extra. It's actually returning back to our basic human nature and honoring the earth's natural rhythms.
Yeah, and one really easy way to do this is just by getting your bare feet on the earth. Some people call this grounding or earthing, but really it's just being a human being on the earth with bare feet, which is the most natural thing in the world. But interestingly, there's scientific evidence that supports grounding, that it can reduce inflammation, it can actually reduce blood viscosity, which can decrease your risk of cardiovascular events. It can help improve sleep, reduce stress. If you live in a city, they sell earthing mats, which is an alternative. I would say if you can find your way to a park, get your shoes off, and that's the best way to do it. Another thing that's sort of got a catchphrase they call forest bathing, but simply just getting yourself out into the woods, breathing in all that good oxygen from the leaves and from the soil, looking through the trees, like receiving sunlight through the trees is like so natural and so calming. Gives us creativity and clarity of mind, and it can even improve immune function, because when we're in nature, it's immediately calming, right? We've all experienced this, of just like going into a forest and it's just this feeling of like, this like downshift. And what this does in the body is it lowers stress hormones, which allows for greater microbiome diversity, which is interesting, which this will directly correlate to increased serotonin production, better nutrient absorption, and better immune function. Another really easy and natural thing you can do for your body is just getting natural sunlight, daylight on the skin, in the eyes. First thing in the morning, get your eyes on the sky, open a window if you live in a city, and just look up and receive natural sunlight. And this helps to balance and recalibrate your circadian rhythms, which will help you get on a better sleep schedule. And actually, interestingly, when you receive daylight in the morning, your brain starts to produce melatonin for that night's sleep. So again, it will help you with your sleep schedule, boosting serotonin, and of course, receiving sunlight allows your body to produce its own vitamin D, which correlates to immunity and hormone regulation and mood.
Finally, making non-human friends and this concept of reciprocity. There's an amazing quote, which I don't actually know the origin point, but it is generated from a North American indigenous human that said, "You're going to be awfully lonely if the only other person you talk to are human people." So that means this sense of connection extends beyond just human relationships. And so we encourage making non-human friends. The first one could be simply finding a place that you go to, almost like a daily practice, repeatedly and consistently. When I used to live by the ocean, I would go every single morning, sometimes 3 times a week, and the ocean would receive me no matter whether I was joyful or in grief or feeling challenged. And just that consistency allowed me to show up as I was. This concept related to making non-human friends is shifting out of egocentrism, which is centering the ego as the current way the world is making meaning, and shifting that to ecocentrism is allowing the greater story that is told on the earth to be told by all of nature instead of just the human story. So what this insinuates is that there might be a greater story being told than what the story is that we tell ourselves inside, which also encourages a lot of what we talk about listening. So finding a tree that you can go and you can build a relationship with, that you can go and speak to and admire, and some days when you're not feeling so well, you can go and sit underneath it and receive from it.
Yeah, even just keeping houseplants, like having plants in your home and practicing close observation of these plants for their teachings. These plants have things to teach us. So by observing the mechanics of the natural world, the botanical world, we get to learn from them, because animals and plants, they are subject to the same natural laws that we are, but they're not obstructed by mind. And so they become teachers. So by observing nature, like watching the honeybee gather pollen, or watching a tree drop its leaves, watching the seasons change, watching the moon phases change, the direct observation consistently of these natural processes, very human, and it helps us to see things as they are and helps us to see ourselves as we are. Like Alexa said, it helps us to track our own changes. And so the teachings that we receive from the natural world, we then get to apply to our life and apply to our relationships.
Yeah, so when we work with these amazing plant and animal teachers and learn from them, we learn to expand our sense of reality and be more inclusive of the multiplicity of life, of nature, of spirit. We learn how to fly like an eagle. That concept is inviting us into receiving wisdom through metaphor, not through literal language form. In any moment we shift ourselves out of the language center of the brain and shift into what we call the imaginal center, we're allowing ourselves to lean into the mystery and actually create a flexibility of how we relate to other humans. Number 5, felt sense exploration. Number 5 has 4 aspects: listen, create, engage, and light. So engaging with the physical senses with an additional aspect of creativity and intentionality creates touch points back to the sacred, just like the metaphor. It is an action that means more than just a literal action. So for listening to sacred music, to music that was played in ceremony, listening to the sounds of nature, to birds, to crickets, to water, all of this listening to these aspects gets us out of our linear thought patterns and can help open us to creativity. Not to mention it's deeply soothing. So that's listen.
Okay, number 2 is about creating, and especially creating sacred space in your home. So this could be an altar, like the one we have here. This is our home altar. And an altar is a place that you designate as sacred. It's not sacred because of the things we put on it. It's sacred because of the power we give to those things. We give them meaning. And so going to a shop and, buying a crystal or a singing bowl and just plopping it on an altar will have a different feeling from something that you've had with you for many years, that have more meaning, more personal meaning. Because an altar is, you can think of it like a 3D representation of your life. And it can be interactive. An altar should change. It should change with you. Sometimes we put something on the altar for a season or sometimes just a few days, and then it feels like it wants to be put away, and then something else comes in. You could put photos of teachers, ancestors, photos of meaningful places, a photo of you as a child, perhaps. And so it really doesn't have to look any certain way. It has to feel sacred. This is the point of an altar. And again, it's interactive. It's something that you take care of. We often like to put a bowl of water on our altar simply because it tells us when we're not paying attention to the altar. An altar should be visited every day, even if you just walk by it and just take a moment with it. But a bowl of water will get cloudy, and it needs to be changed and cleaned. We'll take that water and give it to the plants. It can be yours. This is where creativity comes in. This is where you get to have some fun with it. And it could be something very small. It could be like a little corner of your room, or it could be something bigger. It could be, you could treat your whole house as an altar, but having some sort of physical space in your home that's designated to be a touch point back to the sacred.
The word altar comes from altare, which means to hold on high. So it is a representation of some value that is more than just the thing is. And so it's an essence of, even though we have daily, really busy lives, consensus reality, jobs, we can create a physical representation of the greater values that we are curating through just daily tasks of cooking food, daily tasks of walking the dog or being with children. That physical representation, that visual representation of the values that you're pouring into your life can feed you. I also love this idea of tending an altar and giving it life and giving to it when you're feeling really good. So some days when you're not feeling so great, you can sit right in front of it and receive from it. It's this idea of reciprocity. It's this idea of offering your energy and putting your energy into something. So when it's time for you to receive, you can sit and receive your energy back through the portal of this 3D creation. The next one is engage. Engage the sense of smell. Smell is one of the senses that is the most highly correlated with stimulating memory. So a lot of times when we work at our retreats in Mexico, we work with a resin called copal, which comes from a tree here, which is a resin that can deliver a beautiful sense of smell at a very basic level, or some people believe it can call in loving spirits or call in the spirit of love or protection. So the idea of engaging in sense of smell brings you back. It doesn't bring you back to the literal ceremony, but it brings you back to the part inside yourself, the portal inside yourself that was activated in ceremony. This is never about recreating ceremonies Luke had mentioned in the beginning. It's recreating the inner landscape, the inner architecture of your life so that you eventually keep coming home to yourself. A few favorite resins that we use are frankincense, myrrh, palo santo, sage. Really local to the northern worlds is juniper, so just getting simple juniper from trees, and cedar. So it doesn't always have to be something that most people use. You can also experiment with it. We have a lot of pine trees growing around here in the highlands of Mexico, and there's a resin that comes out of the pine trees here called piñón, and that has a really sweet scent as well. So it can be something that was used in ceremony. Or, just like an altar, it can be something that you procure and you put your energy into. So anytime you burn it, it reminds you of your own energy, your own teacher within.
And the last one is about light. So this is about just utilizing candlelight. Candlelight is beautiful, and you know how you feel under fluorescent lights, and you know how you feel with candlelight. So on a scientific level, candlelight is infrared, which is deeply calming and can help prepare you for a good night's sleep. On an ethnocultural level, candlelight can connect us back to our most ancient roots. Everybody has a connection to the fire. All of our ancestors have a connection to the fire. And so everyone has that experience also of sitting in front of a fire and getting lost in the fire, in the trance and the dance of the fire, gazing into it and just letting it take you. And we are so easily drawn into that experience because it's inside of us. It's in our genetics. It's like all of our ancestors had that experience. It's something we carry. And so gazing into a candle, or even just having ambient candlelight around in your room, can connect us back to that ancestral memory. And so we recommend using beeswax candles when possible, because a lot of modern candles are made of petroleum products and chemical fragrances, which are not great for you. But this is the power of candlelight.
Pathway number 6, community, which I think is one of our favorite.
Maybe the most important pathway.
Yeah, this is one of our favorites. And we want to speak to 2 aspects of why community is so helpful. And I want to introduce the neurobiological underpinnings of why community is helpful. And Luke is going to shift a little bit more into one of our traditions that we deeply appreciate as a teaching point. So the neurobiology of community is based on the importance of what we call mirror neurons. I don't know if you've ever been watching a football game or a sports game and the person, slams a dunk or scores a touchdown and everybody loses it as if they had did it, as if they had done the same thing. That is a deeply human wiring, which is called mirror neurons. Or you walk into the room and someone that you love is feeling down, you can feel that inside yourself. And so we are literally wired to use the mirror neurons in our brain for compassion, for connecting with one another's, for shifting out of isolation. So human beings are inherently social beings. And anytime we're feeling down, if we can connect with another person, we can use their nervous system to support ourselves. That is why it is so important for those of us that are facilitators to practice our own self-compassion so that we can become the drum that everybody resonates with. We call that entrainment or limbic resonance. So these are all concepts that this interests you. You can look up mirror neurons, limbic resonance, or entrainment. So community is actually the rhythm of the drum of the heart that brings us back to center. So that is the kind of neurobiological buy-in for why community is so helpful.
And in the Buddhist tradition, it is said that there are 3 required factors if one is to achieve awakening or enlightenment. And one is the Buddha, which is, you could say, there's like the Buddha, but in this context, the Buddha speaks to your potential to become a Buddha, to become enlightened, in which every single person alive has, every sentient being has the potential in them to awaken. The second is they call it the Dharma, or the teachings. So this is about taking refuge in the teachings of the elders or the plant medicines themselves. And so your Dharma is your path. It is your path towards awakening, which you navigate through both study and experiencing, truths about your existence and the nature of your suffering and the nature of your own individual path. And the third one, which speaks to community, they call the Sangha. This, in a traditional setting, they would refer to the community of the monks and the nuns as the Sangha. But really, the Sangha is your community, it's your people. And it serves as a support network in one aspect for individuals on their spiritual journey. It's an opportunity to receive reflection and accountability. And so the Buddhists would take refuge in the Sangha, seeking guidance, companionship, and encouragement from the community. So after an experience like the one you may have had with plant medicines that can unravel the ego and soften that personality structure, like Alexa was saying, the nervous system longs for this co-regulation, and not just with anybody, but with the others who understand this ineffable aspect of life and growing, and who can honor that part of you that is still emerging. And as social beings, our sense of self is entirely relational, and so this is why community is so very important.
And the Aboriginal culture, or many indigenous cultures, basically every culture that is indigenous other than us modern Westerners, has a rite of passage. I know for me, my greatest rite of passage as a woman that was raised in the United States was getting a driver's license, which isn't necessarily a practice of removing myself from daily life, going through an experience that makes me shed all the layers of who I thought I was and puts me in the right place to call in the vision of who I am to become. The last step of the rite of passage after removing yourself from daily life, which for you is preparing for ceremony, going to retreat, having the encounter, which is either a vision quest or a fast or a rite of passage like a plant medicine ceremony, it is a return. And in every single culture, there is a recognition that this person is in between realms. We call that the liminal space. It's not yet knowing where we're going to, but knowing that we've left a familiar realm. And so it's the idea of when we let go of who we are, we also need to be in community spaces that understand the technology of the rite of passage. And I think that's why so many people are coming to plant medicines in the modern culture, is because we want to find out who we truly are, who we truly are beyond everything we've been told. And sometimes we get that. And that's where integration comes in, because sometimes we find out who we truly are and we need to figure out how to bring all those parts back together. So community is a beautiful balm for that belonging in the unknown.
Yeah. Community, it also gives us the opportunity to focus our attention on something other than ourselves, right? Because when we only focus on ourselves, that's where we develop anxiety and selfishness and other kinds of neuroses, right? So practice reaching out, and showing up, getting back in touch with people you may have lost touch with, and making even a small effort to connect with your community, with the people that you live with, or even the people that live far away that you just need to make a phone call to. It could be organizing your own gatherings where you can meet other people who are on the path. But again, this is about also co-regulating with others, going to quiet spaces like yoga or meditation classes or sound baths or conscious dance events, being with people, this is the point. Because not only do we get to co-regulate with others, but the community can bring awareness to our blind spots. We all have blind spots. Like Alexa can see mine very well, and I can see hers sometimes. But we can't see them on our own. That's why we need the others to lovingly point these things out to us so that we can continue to grow and grow together. Because we can't do it alone. We can't grow in isolation. We need each other. So this is the importance of community.
Many of us are used to running our lives off of dopamine. When we come back from a retreat, we may notice that, wow, my motivation for work is really low. The first thing I share with people is that that will change. It's okay. It's just because serotonin is high. A beautiful way of curating more grace in this experience is also activating two other chemicals in the brain. Oxytocin, which they call the hug drug or the bonding hormone for mainly women and men, but also vasopressin, which is also kind of essentially a bonding hormone for men. When we focus on bonding, we're increasing serotonin, and even if the dopamine is low, we're valuing connection over performance. And that can be a really nice way of transitioning out. So if you do arrive back to work and you're feeling like your motivation is low, focus on connecting with people in the workplace, and that will give you a little bit of a buffer.
The last thing I would like to say about community is that community gives us an opportunity to become an inspiration to others, although you might not believe it at first. You might be new on the path and don't feel like you have a lot to offer, but you do. Just the fact that you've taken the first step means that you're one step farther than somebody else. And you may not feel like you have great wisdom to share, but you have experience. You have a story to share. You have something to inspire somebody with. And so you, in this way, have your own medicine to share with someone. And so share it, get it out there, meet people, and share your story, because this will inspire others, because it's easy to get stuck, especially when we're alone. So that is the importance of connecting with others and building your community, creating community if you don't feel like you have it, and being that light on someone else's path.
So thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Let's review. So the 6 pathways to psychedelic integration are the art of stillness, a daily practice, wellness and self-care, connection to nature, felt sense exploration, and community. You'll see on the final slide that we offer you a few journal prompts. So if there was one that particularly excited you, please engage the journal prompts, remembering that these pathways don't need to all be activated at once. They're different companions that you walk with in the path of life. So if there was 1 or 2 that really spoke out to you, please start with what already gives you benefit. And when you start to get the spokes of the wheel going and you start to build momentum, you may bring in something that feels a little bit more challenging or in the growth zone. But we definitely operate on what's working now. What feels good now? Orient yourself towards allowing the benefit to be received, and then shift into something that feels a little bit of a growth zone. And so thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching. Wishing you many blessings. We hope this serves you all well, and we'll see you soon.